Stillman and Company today features Joe Rexrode for Jared versus Joe, VrabelGate edition.
Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. What do you guys think about that tease to open up the program in 10 minutes? Joe Rexrode for Jared versus Joe, VrabelGate edition here on the program. And not only that, again, we all know Joe worked with Diana, didn't want to talk about this. He was texting me yesterday. I said, fine, Joe, just come on the program. So Joe Rexrode is going to come on the program. Jimmy asks if I overslept today. I did not. I was actually getting a graphic ready for Joe, and we were 1 minute. We started technically at 2:01. Okay, so let's start off with the main topic today before we get into Joe, and that is about Mike Vrabel finally meeting with the media. I was shocked. I was on Twitter today, and I saw Vrabel spoke, and I'm like, what? And I'm a big believer in giving credit where credit is due. I've got to give credit to Stacey James and the New England Patriots because the way they handled this, Vrabel speaks before the draft. There's playoff hockey and playoff basketball going on in Boston. The draft is on Thursday night. Now nobody's going to go there and ask VrabelGate questions to Mike Vrabel. Vrabel got up there, didn't take any questions on camera, which we'll get into in a second, and basically admitted to it without admitting to it. But here's what Mike Vrabel said today. If you have missed his statement, I'm sorry, the audio is not great, but it is what it is. Here was Mike Vrabel today at an impromptu press conference at the New England Patriots facility in Foxborough.
With that being said, I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. We believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me. That starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to be the cause of a distraction. Those are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team. We'll keep those private and to ourselves. Care deeply about this football team and excited to coach them. I also know that I'm going to attack each day with humility and focus. And what I can promise you is that my family, this organization, the team, the staff, the coaches, everybody, our fans, most importantly, will get the best version of me going forward. And that's what I know, and I'm excited to do that. But I wanted to just address this and thank you for your patience in dealing with the private and personal matter. Thank you.
Okay. He didn't admit it, but he admitted it. And my favorite part of that was I'm going to attack every day with humility. Sure, Mike. But hey, whatever floats your boat. Couple of thoughts here. My takeaways from what is the beginning of the end, in my opinion, of the VrabelGate saga. Now, it's never truly going to go away. Just like Rick Pitino's transgressions never go away. He's still coaching at St. John's and he's still winning basketball games. And we still know Rick Pitino's a Hall of Famer. But what happened in that Italian restaurant or with those hookers or whatever, that's never going to go away. Number one, I think Mike Vrabel did what he had to do. Mike Vrabel got up there. Everybody has been waiting for 2 weeks to hear from Mike Vrabel. He used the excuse of, I wanted to talk to the players first for not having talked for 2 weeks. I wasn't in the meeting rooms when Stacey James and Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft probably sat down with Vrabel to go over this plan. My guess is that press conference that Vrabel did, that 2-minute and 30-second press conference, is the single hardest thing they have ever gotten Mike Vrabel to do. Because Mike Vrabel does not like getting up there and saying, I fucked up. And that's why Vrabel didn't say, I fucked up, but instead alluded to the reality that he fucked up by talking about a personal and private matter, talking about needing to talk to the players and be responsible for our actions. Mike Vrabel admitted that what looks like a duck and quacks like a duck is in fact a duck. And that was exactly what he had to do. He had to do something, and he did. The second thing, Vrabel absolutely hung Diana out to dry today, but I'm not sure he had a choice. By Mike Vrabel getting up there and essentially admitting that what we had all been led to believe was an improper relationship, probably was, he's basically admitting, A, he lied when he gave his statement to the Post, B, she lied when she gave her statement to the Post, and C, she lied again last week. And somebody told me that does this stuff for a living in the industry, and they said this was attacked the way Vrabel had to attack it. It's now not going to be brought up again. They're not going to ask questions on Thursday, and I agree with that. Karen Garigian did an interview on 98.5 The Sports Hub. She's a beat writer. She's the Teresa Walker in New England, where she gets to ask the first question every time, and she was like, I don't have any reason to ask a question on Thursday night. Tommy Curran was on Sports Radio WEEI in Boston. He said, I don't know who's going to ask what, but I'm not going to ask questions about that. So the draft will be the focus of Vrabel's next press availability on Thursday. But by soft confirming, which is what I'm going to call what Vrabel said today, by soft confirming that, I think Diana's career is officially over. Now, Diana, and I know she's probably going to try to get back in the game. She's probably going to launch a podcast just like I have, just like other people have. Diana is now going to really have a hard time when it comes to being a reporter with the fact that not only did she lie once, she lied twice. At least that's what everybody thinks. And that is a job where trust matters. And so Diana comes out, lies originally. Vrabel comes out, lies originally. And today's press conference, again, I think he admitted that he lied. So they both lied. Vrabel finally gets up there and basically says, I fucked up. Without saying it, because Vrabel will never say that, he basically said, I fucked up. I had to talk to the players. I've had to have tough conversations. This involves my family. He told you, I fucked up. Diana's statement last week was, I did nothing wrong and the mean media is out to get me. And now, based on what Vrabel said, that looks doubly as bad. So I would have advised Vrabel to do the same thing. And I think that those pictures, again, it takes two to tango. So at that point, it's every man for himself. But man, Vrabel absolutely nuked Diana Rossini today. And I have to say, I think the end result of this, Mike Vrabel's credibility and the narrative that surrounds how great of a coach he is. When this had nothing to do with coaching, other than, again, the accountability aspect of Mike Vrabel, holds everybody else accountable. Can he be accountable? It's not really going to matter when they kick the ball off. But I think you're going to see a lot of the tempering of the great Mike Vrabel from across the media, even though this really didn't have anything to do with football. The other thing, Vrabel did an off-camera Q&A. Can you believe that? Of course he did. Vrabel did an off-camera Q&A with reporters. I think it was like 5 or 6 questions long. Mass Live had the transcript of it. And there were 2 questions I think that were important. One on Rossini resigning from The Athletic, and then one on when Vrabel called the initial implications laughable. Again, there was no audio, no video, so it's just the quotes. But with the power of AI, we do have what Mike Vrabel said. So this is on Diana Rossini resigning from her position at The Athletic as transcribed by Mass Live.
There 13 new players. I appreciate the question. I'm going to focus on our football team. I think I've addressed what I felt like was important. So focusing on our football team and the importance of teaching these guys, bringing a new team together, 13 new players.
Okay. That was the second one on calling the implication laughable. Is he said, I appreciate the football team to focus on. This is his one on Diana.
I respect and I appreciate every single question, but I'm not going to be able to comment on anything as it relates to that. I appreciate your job and what you guys have got to do, but I have to make my comments and what I answer about our football team.
Okay. So that's what Vrabel said, which was basically nothing. Again, we played the cut where he didn't admit to it, but it does feel like he admitted to it. Now, what I think you're all here for, what I feel like you've all been waiting for, Joe Rexrode. And if you remember, it was Joe Rexrode and Diana Rossini who in January of 2024 wrote the story at The Athletic, Why Titans Fired Mike Vrabel, a story of festering slights and a lack of communication. Joe Rexrode worked with Diana Rossini at The Athletic, and Joe Rexrode has been very, very angry with me. He joins us now on the program. Joe Rexrode, first of all, welcome to the Stillman and Company pod. Joseph, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Jared. I haven't been angry with you. I have been taking shots at you because I've been a little puzzled by some of your decisions. I'm not angry. I'm not mad.
So I asked Joe, I think I could say, I don't want to start any, shit, but I asked Joe at the beginning of this to come on the program, and Joe respectfully, well, I would say disrespectfully declined because of the time you were, and you talked about this on the air on your show, you're coworkers with Diana, and I totally understand you trying to stay out of it. Well, now Diana's no longer your coworker at The Athletic. Now Vrabel got up there and he gave his speech. And so I am going to ask you kind of your reaction right now to the entire VrabelGate saga. And I do want to throw this in there before you answer this question, Joe. People have asked, are we going to have Caroline on? I thought about texting Caroline, saying if she wanted to come on. Instead, we are going to have this poll in the bottom of the screen. Jared versus Joe. Whose side are you on this week? And I guess people can vote on it. I don't know how they vote on it, but I guess they can. So, Joe, we start with this. Number one, your reaction so far to the 2 weeks that has been with VrabelGate.
So, first of all, I hope Caroline's on her honeymoon. Congrats to her. And second of all, and I'm sure you did a fine job officiating the wedding. And second of all, so this poll is just like there's a presumed argument. What if we agree on everything today? This is just going to be like your listeners / viewers are just gonna give a nod to one of the two. We may not argue.
Honestly, I don't even know how to vote in this poll.
Okay. Well, my reaction to it, I'm going to say what I said on our show. It's just a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation. And that's part of why, like, early on, I was just like, okay, I see the pictures, but, again, there are a lot of people who did absolutely nothing wrong, who have sustained serious damage here in the last couple weeks. And that's where I get uneasy with sort of taking stories like this and running with them and seemingly delighting in them. Maybe that word's a little strong, but I thought at times it was like, man, are you seriously just going to talk about this all day again? But it's a terrible situation, and I don't necessarily disagree with your assessment of Vrabel today. I mean, Vrabel, I didn't see the stuff you were just talking about until you just showed it to me there, the sidebar with the writers. But I mean, his statement was extremely vague. It was 2.5 minutes of total word salad, but also I did not hear a denial in there. So it's a terrible situation. I hate it. Diana is a friend. And I enjoyed working with her, and So, if you want to go back to like me talking about it on my show, again, it's like people seriously think that I'm going to like air dirty laundry from my workplace at like my other workplace. I mean, that's just utterly asinine. So maybe you'd agree with Kaharski that, it's like come out. I could have done that. Okay, guys, just so you know, not talking about these New York Post pictures, and that'll do it. But we just didn't address it until it became news, which is Diana's resignation.
So is that your way of apologizing to me for saying that I was doing Playboy radio?
Well, look, I'm not gonna pretend to have consumed every second of it, but a few days into it, I'm like, what more could there be to talk about? Have you become a sex gossip show? And maybe, you know what? People branch off into different things. It's fine. People find a niche and they exploit it. So
I will tell you this, and I mean this with like, I say this with like respect, attached to it. Like when Clay Travis did sports radio in Nashville, like pre-politics, he was the best, I think, to ever do it. And that includes me. Like when he was doing sports radio in Nashville, he's branched out. He's gone political. I guess I've branched out and turned into Playboy radio, as Joe said.
Dr. Love.
TMZ.
Dr.
No,
Love.
TMZ, Ray. TMZ didn't want to touch the story, Joe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that's another thing. And I've seen some of the stuff from you too that's like, oh, why is ESPN burying the story? ESPN wrote a story about it. I mean,
ESPN is hiding this story and you know it.
Hiding it?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Okay. So the VrabelGate pictures came out 2 weeks ago in the New York Post. So it's basically a 2-week-old story. Since then, they have said on television, I believe, nothing about the VrabelGate saga. And they had a reporter write it who has 8,000 Twitter followers. They published the story at 2:00 Eastern time on a Friday. They didn't send out the push notification on the story until 5:00 on a Friday.
Again, this is where you'd I want you to track them. Track them for a month on a bunch of different stories. Track them.
They did not retweet
You're
this.
taking things out of context incorrectly here, Jared.
They did not promote this story, the Ben Strauss story, which I thought was a decent story. They did not promote that on any of their social media. Adam Schefter did not retweet it. Like he retweets every single one of those Kalen Kaler stories about the NFLPA that nobody gives a crap about. He retweets all of those. This is the biggest story in football, and Adam Schefter didn't retweet it. Greenberg's not touching it. Schefter's not touching it. The ESPN wants nothing to do with this. They're burying the story. Admit that.
No, Jared, they're treating it exactly as what it deserves. First of all, Ben Strauss is a really good reporter who is one of the unfortunate firings from the Washington Post, and we at The Athletic gobbled up a bunch of those people, and the ESPN basically was like we split them, and he's excellent. Twitter followers, Jared. It's almost detrimental to me to tweet out one of my stories at this point, given Elon's algorithm. Seriously, like there's no benefit, zero benefit. It's a tiny, minuscule of a fraction of who would even see a story. And again, you can we get buried by that. So I don't know about ESPN. I can't speak for them. I will say the only thing that I would of all that's dumb. I mean, they did a story on it. And also, Jared, the reason to me they didn't promote it is because the story, again, Ben's a good reporter, but he didn't really advance the story. He really just recapped things. There were a couple new things in there, but for the most part, it was just a recap of the whole thing. So it's not some big story. They're going to be like, look at this, everybody. He didn't really get anything. You're tweeting like Don Van Natta didn't do the story. Well, he's not just on call to do a story like this. You think more of this story than it deserves. The one thing I will agree with you a little bit, though, is Schefter not tweeting it. Well, I can see that. Schefter's an insider. I think the insider community, probably more than anyone, wants to avoid talking about this story because the reality is there's a lot of things that go on with insiders and sources that you could look at and say, man, I don't know, that might be a little too close.
Okay. So then you don't think that if ESPN,
But ESPN, no, as an entity, why would they even do the story then if they're burying it?
you don't think so that they can say that they did it with
Oh,
nobody
okay.
actually reading it? ESPN has 58.2 million Twitter followers. If they tweet something like that out, people will see it.
Yeah, look, even with that, search still matters way more than that. Search matters way more than social media. So I'm sure people read it. I'm sure a lot of people read it. You know, again, you're close to this story. This is years right in the making here for you. So I think you're giving it a little more oomph than it actually deserves.
No, I cannot accept that from you for this reason.
Okay.
You told me the day that the pictures came out that it was not a story.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that was the exact word, but when it came out, and maybe you might have asked, like, "Are you going to do that on my radio show?" I'm like, "Hell no, no." I mean, the photos came out, and I was like, "Yeah." I looked at the photos, and again,
that is not what I said to you, and that was not your reaction.
Okay, I don't remember.
I said
it wasn't a story.
So I think now we can talk about this because this was just us talking years ago when I started to have my suspicions about Diana and Vrabel. I told you that Caroline and I thought that there was a there, and you went absolutely nuts on me.
And I maintain that exact energy today.
So then
I maintain
when the pictures
every
came
bit
out,
of that energy, Jared.
When the pictures came out, I went to you and I was basically like, what do you think now, Joe?
Right.
And you were like, those pictures don't prove anything.
Well, the reality is, Jared, those pictures in that moment didn't prove anything. They didn't make you know. Jared, don't give me that look. You like to jump to conclusions, but they did not 100% prove anything. But regardless, that's fine. That's fine. All these things have happened now, including Vrabel and what he said today. But let me go back to that, because when you did a couple times on your radio show make suggestions about this, and I
hinted at it.
You did hint at it, and I was like, that's disgusting. I told you that's disgusting. Because, Jared, there was no – and the thing is, after we had our conversation, I even went back and asked around a little bit, like, am I missing something here? I mean, your justification for talking about it was Caroline was like, I could totally see that. So basically you guys were like, oh yeah. So it's a woman, it's a young woman reporter, and it's a coach, and it's just a total presumption based on a trope. And that's ridiculous. And by the way, whatever the case now with their relationship or whatever these things, you're going to try to tell me retroactively that you know something was happening at whatever point? No, you don't know anything. It was laughable to hint at it, and beyond laughable, it was ridiculous to hint at it. And Jared, again, if your only basis for that is, well, I could totally see it, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that anytime there's a woman reporting and a man as a source. We're just going to jump to that conclusion. I mean, come on.
Well, this is the one time that I have had that assumption, and I believe I have been proven correct. So when you sit there and act like, I mean, Jared, you had no proof. It was just a hunch.
You didn't.
If I had proof,
nothing.
I would have gone on the air and said they're stumping each other, but I didn't have proof, so I didn't say that.
Right, but saying anything is absolutely insane, Jared. Saying anything at that moment. And by the way, again, that was what year? 2021, 2022 or something?
So March of 22 was the day that I started to believe that there was something between Vrabel and Rossini based on the way that she defended Vrabel and threw J-Rob under the bus on TV.
This is where, Jared, again.
And then for me,
you're
the
play
icing on the
this
cake
game,
was the CJ Stroud stuff on draft night.
But if you're going to play this game, Jared, go again. The insiders, the reporters who cover the teams, who defend something or portray something in maybe a little more positive light here, maybe a little more negative light here. You're saying that all of those must involve physical relationships?
No, okay, I'm just saying that I got the sense that relationship was a physical relationship.
Got the sense by making it up out of thin air.
I was
Congratulations.
right.
Jared, you don't know that you were right. That was how many years ago?
Joe. So I was wrong then, but I'm right now.
Oh, so when? Okay. Do you have a start date?
Do you think that me hinting at it on the radio is what actually got the idea in their heads that they should start having an affair?
I'm not dignifying idiotic questions from you.
Well, you're acting like I wasn't right. I need to hear you say
you
were right. Even if you don't believe how I got there, I would just like to hear you say that I was right.
Hell no, Jared, you don't know anything about it. You have pictures, you have a resignation, and you have and you have Vrabel's word salad today. And so now that proves years of something that you made up out of thin air. Great. I mean, think about this. I mean, come on. Why it's so important to you to be like, oh, tell me I was right. Jared, everything that I just said, first of all, could have happened at any point. Could have happened a long time ago. Could have happened a month ago. No clue. I don't know. And don't give me that look. You don't know either, Jared. You just made it up out of thin air. And so then years later, now you can go back and say you were right. You were never right, and you are never right. To just assume or say out loud that you think some reporter is having an inappropriate relationship with a source. You better have something behind that other than, no, I could totally see it. I mean, that's
why I didn't say it on the air.
But you did say things on the air.
But I didn't say that. I kept talking about why is Vrabel giving all the stuff to Rossini. I kept saying, hey, Vrabel is clearly Rossini's source. You remember the and I know you hated this, Stu.
This Diana Rossini report comes directly from the desk of Mike Vrabel, most likely.
Okay.
Right. So, okay, that was, I mean, it was funny, but again, it's like, okay, so first of all, then, is that her only source in the league or her only source of the Titans? I can promise you this, Jared. I worked with Diana Rossini on the story when Vrabel got fired. And let me promise you something. This was not a Mike Vrabel story. Oh, Vrabel, tell us what you think, and let's write it. And you know that's damn well true. And you know I'm telling the truth. I hope. I mean, if you have a speck of a clue and you read the story, you understand there were many, many people talked to on both sides of things at times who did not agree with things that did not make the story. So
well, who
again,
talked to them? You were Diana.
Yeah, fuck you. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's just, but the point being that Diana had sources with this team all over the building, multiple sources in this building. And I would bet she had multiple sources in every single building in the league, because that's the job. You have to do that. So you seize on, from the desk of Mike Vrabel. I mean, yeah, like, I understand. I understand the thinking there for sure. And like you said, draft night was weird. I mean, we talked about it at the time, but also like you do need to keep things in context, right? Like, this is a reporter with sources multiple beyond him in the building, a reporter with sources all over the league. So are we assuming, are we assuming out of bounds relationships with any reporter with any source now? I mean, you seized on this one.
No, I seized on this one because I could pick up on it. My thing about Vrabel is, and he'll go to his grave thinking the opposite of what I'm about to say is true. I think Mike Vrabel hates the fact that I am such an expert on him. His mannerisms, the Vrabelese, the way that he says things without saying things. Just remember when I pissed him off over those Patriot Hall of Fame comments, and that obviously became a big deal. And
I remember that.
I mean, Vrabel basically treated that. His response to me that day was the same as his response to the post about the pictures. It's laughable. Like, it's beneath me to even talk to you, Jared. And the truth is no, like, that was a valid thing that clearly pissed the owner off. But again, I know Vrabel. Like, I do. I can read him like Ed Reed can read a quarterback. I don't know why. I don't know. When it comes to Vrabel, I could sense it, the way that he and Rossini, interacted, the fact that he gave her all the juice, the fact that when Rand Carthon was general manager, not that I believe Rand was like a, constant conveyor of the truth. But Rand Carthon one time there was a story, and the player wanted a local reporter to break the story. And in order to make sure that happened, Rand Carthon, from what I was told, had to not tell Vrabel about the deal because they were afraid that Vrabel was going to blab to Rossini because Vrabel couldn't help himself.
Listen, there are coaches, GMs around the league that people like reporters that, oh, well, that probably was, whatever. Rappaport with this person and Schefter with this. I mean, that's at least on the media side. And I think fans pick up on that stuff too, right? And that happens all over the league.
I mean, I don't think the city picked up on Vrabel and Rossini until I started banging it with a hammer, with the Diana Rossini reports. And when it really took off for me was the CJ Stroud thing. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, Vrabel is so compromised that he just cost you your starting quarterback. And I don't think you can have that.
Yeah, look, that situation was weird. For sure. Again, but even that situation, the way it all came out, the way the information came out, the way it appeared, like Houston reacted and everything. Again, that still is a separate thing from what worked this whole story, right?
No.
Well, yes, sure it is, Jared. I mean, every day, all day long in this league or any league, and especially now because every league has to have the insiders, really more and more who are competing, who are trying to get these stories. I mean, there are missteps from people giving the information. There are missteps. We've seen this we've seen it with Schefter and Rappaport, from people delivering the information that I think is just on them at times. And so again, the fact that happened or may have happened here still does not speak to anything illicit. Again, I know that now, way after the fact, you want to hammer this story for weeks and hit every angle of it. Which again, I'm like, really? Is there still more to talk about? But again, I think you're jumping to conclusions, or you're just overemphasizing something that doesn't necessarily have to be a part of it at all, and wasn't necessarily part of it at all.
But
you have to stick with what you know, and you think you know more here than you do.
Well, I think that I know more than I do because I guessed it at the time, and I was proven to be right. See, what I feel like you're saying, if I may double you for a second, Joe, what I feel like you're saying that I just made up some bullshit because I just make up bullshit, and that in this case, we don't even know if the bullshit I made up at that point was right. But it looks right today because all this came out, but has nothing to do with how I actually came up with the bullshit. Whereas I feel like I didn't make it up. I noticed these signs. I was cued in on this.
What signs?
Again, her throwing
people
J-Rob
speaking
under
to
the
each
bus.
other. Yeah, but again, so now we're just going around in circles at this point. But this is there are reporters and sources, I think, especially the insider world, where people are like, well, that'll probably be, people went off.
Adam Schefter is spending the night at the Ambiente with another coach.
See, again, no, Jared, that doesn't matter. You're missing the point. You can have a relationship that's too close. If you are not willing to, again, I always use the example, like if I talk to college classes, it's like, as long you're going to become friends with people and you're going to build relationships with people, you're going to like some people and not like some people and all that stuff. As long as it's really clear and there's never any question that that person gets in gets a DUI, gets in some kind of trouble, and you have a chance to break the story, hell yes, you're breaking the story. As long as there's no question about that, then that's fine. I mean, you can be friendly, you can be quote unquote friends, you just can't get too close. And so if you want to try to take this situation and make it massively different from other source reporter problematic relationships and insider reporting, I think you're wrong. And look, it's even, and I don't know, I forget who wrote the story. It was the Wojnarowski story a few years ago. And I know I've argued with people about this too, who think it's kind of BS, but it's just another example of supposedly LeBron James didn't never gave him anything. And so there was all these examples in this story of like really sort of unsympathetic or negative shine on LeBron James when he talked about him. The inference being that because he didn't ever talk to him, give him information, he would attack him, whereas then he's more favorable to people who talk to him and give him all the information, right? I mean, that's no different from what you're talking about. It's not.
What?
I
feel like it's very different.
Okay,
there are no pictures of a
right. So here we go.
Bayless
so this
and
is
Woj
where
at the Ambiente.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's fine. We can just agree to disagree. I'm not going to scream at you about it. That's fine. I disagree with you. I mean, if you go too far in a relationship where, again, you're not calling balls and strikes, you're not reporting accurately, and I don't know if that's true of Wojnarowski. I know someone wrote a story, and it's my fault for forgetting. The story got a lot of run a few years ago. He contested it, but it's an example of how people look at these things and what you have to be very careful of if you were an insider. And again, there's been stuff here recently, not too long ago, with Schefter and some of the stuff he did. To me, any of it where you are compromised in any way from just delivering news, if that's your job, or if it's commentary from like being fair, regardless of whether you have a relationship with a person or a better relationship with this person, a worse relationship with that person, that's all problematic, Jared.
Joe Rexrode is with us here. So I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree on whether or not I was right. Topic number 2. Do you think Diana Russini's career is over? Do you think it should be over? And if she came to you and said, Joe, actually, I'm going to phrase it like this. You are starting your own media company, and Diana asks if she can be your NFL insider, would you hire her?
Yeah, I don't, I agreed to come on here and we're having a nice conversation. I don't really want to get into that stuff. I just don't, I don't know what to say. I think that it's not something that I do. I don't hire and fire people. And if I were even to start to answer a question like that, I'd need, there's a lot more information that you'd have to have. But to answer one part of it, no, I don't think your career is over.
Do you think she'll be on like a ESPN or a, like a true insider, or do you think it'll be like she's working for Diana Russini Substack?
I don't know, Jared. I don't know.
Okay. What do you make of the fact that the story exploded when, again, it wasn't like they were making out in the pictures? I mean, again, you could argue that there was nothing nefarious going on with the pictures. In fact, you, to me personally, did argue that. But what do you make of how it is taken off? I mean, this is 2 weeks later, and people are still talking about it, to the point that Vrabel had to go up there and address it. And you know Vrabel well enough to know Vrabel hated every second of that today. Absolutely hated it. Wouldn't have done it unless they made him do it. What do you make about the way the story's taken off?
Well, first of all, I think that you, for example, may have launched it a little bit much on your show. But as I've said before,
do you think this show is that powerful?
Well, no, I'm not saying that you caused everybody else, but I'm just saying you are an example of someone who maybe made too much of it than it should have been. But first of all, I think people gravitate towards salacious stories. I think that, and I will go back to the pictures, Jared. You're right. Like the pictures are, I mean, they're not like smoking gun pictures, right? That'd be a different thing. There wouldn't have been like, Vrabel calling it laughable and all that stuff if they were. But I think, I think first of all, the NFL is already the number one news making league. Then you have the salacious nature of the story, and then you have outcomes. You have someone resigning from her job, like you said. You have Vrabel addressing it today, and this is one of those things. I've just seen a lot of obviously people talking about the insider stuff, which is probably the part of the story that, again, I think that I saw some stuff Buster Olney said, and I tend to agree. I mean, I think we've gone a little far. Even when I see sometimes young journalists, like it's like so like this mindset of I need to have some anonymous sources to say something to me. Like it's just I don't think it's healthy. And the reality is that if you are an insider and you can move the needle like that, you can command that news. You can find a way to get that news and command the numbers and all that comes with it. Well, you're going to be rewarded handsomely for it and things like that. I mean, to me, that's the part of this that, it's like that. And then you've got like the whatever's going on with like Stephen A. Smith and the people that you idolize, Skip Bayless and whatnot. I mean, between all that, there's a lot in sports media that can be talked about here. But so I think that's part of it. I think people have gotten into that. But also there's I've seen a lot of arguments about, of course, sexism at play here.
Which, that's bullshit, right?
Well, it's just bullshit, just period. It's just bullshit.
I'm not saying sexism is bullshit. I'm saying that sexism in this story is bullshit.
Well, I think that, I think that any sort of compromised relationship is going to get a lot of play, but also this does play into a trope, Jared. And again, you going back years, and it was very disappointing to me that you would just flippantly throw something out there like that without having a clue, without even like if
I didn't throw it out there, and I was right.
No, you weren't right. You cannot sit here and say you were right. You cannot, Jared. You will, but you shouldn't, and you can't.
YouTube chat, does anybody, if you believe Joe Rexrode that I was not right about this, please now speak into the YouTube chat or forever hold your peace.
I mean, it's just basic logic. You don't know anything about this other than 3 pictures and then the outcome since then. If you even had one person in the organization saying something about it, I could at least buy that, but you didn't. So you can't say that. As far as the sexism, I've seen some different things written about this. So that's the thing. You asked why this is a big story. There's a lot of tentacles to it, right? There's the media thing, but there is the women in media aspect of it. My friend Nancy Armour wrote a column for USA Today. It was a good column. I don't necessarily agree with everything she said, which is basically that Diana, that this situation is going to be really harmful. But the reality is the loser assholes on social media who immediately automatically go to this stuff, well, they already were anyway. I guess they're more emboldened now, right? And this is where someone like you should be more responsible and not feed those assholes, but you gladly feed them.
I was in an airport headed out to Phoenix for Caroline's wedding, and I got a text into our group chat that's me, Joe, Robbie, Ian, and Caroline. And it was a quote tweet that Jason Whitlock had said about one of my tweets, where Whitlock was basically like, great theory or something. And now you came at me because Whitlock thought I was right, as if like I'm wrong because Whitlock said I was right.
You and Whitlock, a similar worldview. You mentioned Clay Travis earlier too. You, Whitlock, Clay Travis.
I used to like Whitlock. Like back in the day when he was on the Sports Reporters, I used to like Whitlock.
Yeah, I like Whitlock when he used to be a sports columnist and he hadn't lost his mind too.
So here's why I think the story is taken off. Number one, to your point, it is the NFL. Number two, Vrabel's a very popular coach. Number three, Diana's a good-looking woman, and those things matter because sex sells. I think the biggest thing is just the denials that the two of them had, which required at least some sort of proof to back it up. Again, Diana, here's where I struggle with this as far as, like, really, Diana? The fact that Diana said she was on a girls' trip with 6 girls, and this was supposed to be the first girls' hiking trip in the history of the 21st century that didn't have one picture taken that she could have provided. That's why I think the story took off, was because of the lying. Or maybe you're right, Joe. I don't technically know that she lied, but the assumption of guilt and the fact that we kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing came of it. And I have to ask, these crisis PR people, could they not have fucked this up any worse?
Is that a double negative you shouldn't have had there? I must say, though, to you, Jared, like, what are we? Are we 2 weeks now? Are we 2 weeks?
Today is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Happy 2-week anniversary to VrabelGate.
And you're still, you're still talking about like the girls trip stuff or whatever. Like, are you going to get enough of this story? Like, is this ever going to get old for you?
Well, I mean, tomorrow we're going to have the Stillman & Company mock draft, the final Stillman & Company mock draft on the program. And then the draft will be on Thursday. And we won't do I might do a show in the morning on Thursday, but probably not. So it'll just be live during the draft. And when the Titans take Sonny Styles, I may absolutely lose my shit if that happens. Although Easton said today he doesn't think they're going to take Sonny Styles. I mean, I think that the story probably – I think that the story is kind of over now, but it's never going to end, if that makes any sense. This is like one of those Rick Pitino scandals where, like, Vrabel's going to go on to coach. Vrabel's going to coach well because Vrabel is a good coach, just like Pitino is a good coach. But I don't think anybody ever really looks at Rick Pitino without being like, yeah, but. And I think that's going to be kind of how this story continues on forever. And I think Diana's career is probably over.
Well, on the Vrabel front, it's probably smart that he did what he did in terms of having this little press conference, if that's what you want to call it, before the draft. Because otherwise people have to ask about it during the draft and it's a draft press. So it's like, knock it out of the way. I think this about Vrabel. I've already thought that the Patriots this year are going to recede a little bit, right? Like they're going to have a tougher schedule. They're not going back to the Super Bowl. It was a kind of a magical run. I think that they were already headed toward like a 9-8 kind of season, right? I mean, maybe I'm a little down on them. I mean, who knows? They have a draft here coming up. But the one thing I will say about this, yes, there is no question that in a situation like this, when you have like a coach and you have, someone in media, I mean, the person in media is going to be, is going to pay more, so to speak. It's going to be more ramifications and more consequences for that person. But when they do go 9-8 next year, this is when people will bring it up. And that's any failures now, this is part of again, a lot of it is just assholes on social media, but let's not pretend like people don't notice that or hear that, or that it doesn't leak into talk radio or whatever it is. And so I do think that things have gotten tougher for Mike Vrabel.
Has your opinion of Mike Vrabel changed over the last 2 weeks?
As a football coach?
All of it.
Long pause, Jared. Long pause. Look, again, first of all, the problem with this discussion with you is that you are taking it from we know all these things, and I'm just not doing that. But I have not been impressed with Mike Vrabel. I was not impressed with Mike Vrabel today. And
really?
Yeah, no. You were? What I liked was when he talked about how it's going to be the most amazing night of these young men's lives. I'm like, wow, that's what Rand said during the draft 2 years ago.
I heard that too.
How about that?
I heard that about the distraction and how great of an opportunity is for these kids. And I was like, you mean the one that if we talk about that and that's the best night of their career, you probably had a pretty bad NFL career? I thought the exact same thing when I listened to Vrabel's word salad filibuster today.
I mean, the reality is you cover these people, and we don't really know these people is always a great thing to live by, because you can cover someone and think that's just the greatest. Like there's a few people I've covered in my career where it's like, I will absolutely throw it down on the table that Kirk Cousins is an amazing human being. And no reservation, that's 5 years of him in college and he's the real deal. But I mean, if you want to really get into stuff with like coaches and, coaches and players, coaches and athletes in college professional sports, there's some stuff that goes on, and there's, people don't want to know how the sausage is made. Sometimes that's the insider part of it. But still, even with that, you hope people have a higher moral code, right?
So how
Some
do you
do.
feel?
Some do.
You talk about the insider trade, and I kind of wonder, you're a capital J journalist, and I think we can agree that this entire 2-week saga has been bad for the capital J's of the world. I look at Adam Schefter, and we always joke about how quick Schefter and Rappaport and Pelissero and all those guys are to tweet out that a practice squad tackle has signed with the Indianapolis Colts. And last year he was with the Ravens on their practice squad, but he started 9 games in 2024, and he reunites with the offensive line coach, and Johnny Joe of Johnny's agency did the deal. And we all laugh at how quickly those guys go to put those out there. But I feel like they do that so that it builds credibility of the fans, so that Schefter can then drop a notebook like he did yesterday, where he talked about Jeremiyah Love may go at number 3. He may not go. Dallas may trade up. They may not trade up. Tennessee may this. They may not do that. That's where I feel like they make their money, is this role in the ecosystem where Mike Greenberg can bring on Adam Schefter and say, Shefty, your report about A.J. Brown that was not a new report and wasn't any actual news yesterday is, as Greenberg said, blowing up the internet, which I felt like it was not blowing up the internet, but Greenberg was overselling it. And they brought Shefty on there to say things that everybody already knew. I think that's where they make their money, is by perpetuating the gossip and everything else in the ecosystem. And I wonder how you feel about the insider game now that it's been a week in which it feels like, or it's been 2 weeks in which right now it looks like the insider game is simple tit for tat.
Well, but again, like if you think that this particular story is, I think you're giving it again too much credit as like a revelation. Again,
I think it is a revelation for a lot of people.
Go read the Washington Post story on Adam Schefter.
People don't read; they look at pictures of the coach and a woman canoodling.
Right, but Jared, it's a story that exists. It's there on the internet. I know you can read.
I agree. And I think Schefter and all those guys are full of shit. I remember when Ryan Tannehill redid his contract in 2021. And I said that it's not as simple as a Tannehill restructure. This is when I believed in the salary cap. It's not as simple as a Tannehill restructure to work in the Julio Jones thing or whatever. And then Ian Rappaport reported that it was a simple Tannehill restructure, and everybody was like, Jared, Ian Rappaport knows, you don't know. And I was like, how do they do that? So I called, I talked to somebody, and they told me, somebody that would know, told me, yeah, I don't think Rappaport's right. I mean, Tannehill did restructure, but he didn't restructure like that. So I texted Rappaport, and I said to Rappaport, I'm like, I think you might have gotten this wrong. And Rappaport texted me and was like, I'm going to stand by the story. And then like 3 hours later, Rappaport sent a new tweet where he quote tweeted his original report and then said, to add context, AKA to refute what I originally said, but he said to add context. And I thought to myself, oh my God. I'm like, Rappaport, he won't admit that he was wrong, but he was wrong. I was right. He was wrong. And the amount of people that are like, I trust Ian Rappaport over you. And I'm like, Ian Rappaport's just doing whatever somebody texted him to do. Well, just like when Mike Mularkey told him he was getting a contract extension and Rappaport reported it. It's all bullshit. I've known that. You know that. But I don't think the fans knew that until now.
Well, first of all, I mean, for the most part, it's just these daily transactions and everything. And it's like, it's not like they're inaccurate, right? It's just, but the idea that you think that this is some, tit for tat, really? I don't know. I think fans are smarter than that, and it's also, I can't sit here and pretend I spend all this much time thinking about it, Jared. But there are insiders who do the job differently than others, right? So we shouldn't totally it's not one monolithic thing that's exactly this. I think there's ways to do it and quote unquote do it the right way. And I also just think it's easy to get yourself in trouble. And obviously you can't to me tweet something like he tweeted about Deshaun Watson being innocent. I'm talking about Schefter now. You can't. The Mr. Editor thing, people made a big deal. That is that's a basic no that you can't do. Now, do people care that much about that stuff? I agree with you. No, that's not a story that is shockwaves. If you have a story with some pictures and all this stuff, then people pay more attention. But I think it's a real slippery slope, and I don't know. I don't have any great answers for it. It moves the needle. People, if you get the news first, even though it's really a lot of it is just like I was first on Twitter and then they were second 3 seconds later, but that still, moves the needle for the content and things like that. So I don't have a great answer on like how to make it better, but you had a point, Jared, that I wanted to get to real fast, which was like, I think you said, and I was trying to understand what you meant, that doesn't pay to tell the truth, right?
I am afraid. I am afraid. So when I was in Louisville on the radio, and I think you probably know, of the situation probably more than most people because you were really into college sports at the time and, Michigan State, big basketball program, Louisville, Kentucky, big basketball program. So you know all the players involved or whatever. When I was at Louisville, I ripped Rick Pitino one day, just ripped his ass because there was this player that transferred and we started our show and my co-host at the time, Drew Diener, he was like, well, so-and-so transferred, but he's no good anyways. And I'm like, no, this is a big deal because Cal is just wiping his tush with Pitino. He's out there recruiting Trey Lyles, and he's out there recruiting Karl Anthony Towns, and he's got Willie Cauley-Stein and the Harrison twins and Booker and Ulis. And I'm like, where's my Trey Lyles? Where's my Karl Towns? And, of course, as you can imagine, in Louisville, Kentucky, that got the phones all worked up with people, talking whatever. And I got back to the station, and a consultant that once consulted for our radio station when we worked together at 102.5 was consulting for this station. He's a longtime ESPN radio guy. And he was like, that was excellent. That was great. I got a call from, I think I can say this. I got a call from Kenny Klein like an hour after that, who is, the dean of Louisville PR at the time. And he was basically just like, I thought you were a little harsh. And I could tell U of L was not happy about it. And so at that point in time, I'm 25 years old at this point, and I'm standing there, and I see the fork in the road. And on one side of the fork, it is, I'm going to say whatever I think, and I'm just not going to have, like, coaches, players, executives, athletic directors. They're just not going to be friends with me. Or I can play nice and have friends whose asses I kiss. I chose I'm just going to tell the truth, say whatever the fuck I think, and if people don't like me, it is what it is. I mean, the agent that I am closest with, probably in the NFL, as a friend, is Peter Skoronski's agent. And I am on Peter Skoronski's ass all the time. If we can't be friends, I'm just doing my job. And I believe that from a strategic standpoint, that may not be the right way to do this if my goal is to get to the top.
No, I disagree with you. You like Colin Cowherd, right? I mean, that's a guy, isn't he one of the guys that you really respect?
He's not touching this, though, with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, but does he go on there? Listen, I don't listen to him. Does he go on there and kiss Bud and this and that and be careful, or does he go on there and just say what he thinks? Saying what you think is always going to work, man.
I think old school Cowherd 15 years ago, like when he first got to ESPN, if you go back and you listen to some of the old school Colin Cowherd, I mean, he was rough. Like, he was sharp. He was going at people. He was taking phone calls. He was lighting people up. Now I kind of feel like Colin Cowherd, he was out in LA for forever. He's made all his money. He's got his own. I think now it's more like, let's get on here and talk about LeBron's brand. Just kind of the
not every, yeah, but
boring shit.
As you know, as you've milked this story for 2 weeks, everything can't be all that exciting, right? I mean, you just it's not like the content isn't always there. But I disagree with you, and I think that people care about authenticity and telling the truth. As we've talked about, I think it's also important to not just be a grenade thrower from a million miles away, and to be accountable and show up, which you have done certainly. You go to Titans and Preds press conferences and ask questions, so that's not everybody who's a quote unquote truth teller does that. But I think audience, again, you're also talking about like totally different jobs. There's so many different types of jobs, but your job to not be authentic, be willing to criticize and tell the truth, I think that that's a bad way to go.
I agree, but I think that there's a lot of people that have gotten to where they are in the media and everything else because they've kissed a lot of ass because they're seen as safe. Mike Greenberg is safe.
Okay.
Mike Greenberg ain't ripping nobody's ass, and you know that.
But that's fine. But Mike Greenberg also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He kind of did the play-by-play route, didn't he? He's a show host. I thought he did play-by-play for a while, stuff like that. I mean, he's a show host. He's a facilitator. He's not an opinion giver, right?
Right. I mean, he did have a radio show, and I think radio is about giving opinions. But
I suppose when he had that show, yeah. Well, again, some people also look at things differently than you know, like people have different outlooks. But if you are overly careful and ass kissy and not,
one person says Taylor Zarzer.
Hey, Joe Blacko from the YouTube chat.
There's a lot of overlap between my YouTube chat and your YouTube chat.
Well, I mean, you know, if we're going to get into like play-by-play people who work for a team, that's like, you can't even count that, right? Come on.
How happy are you for this story that I'm not on the same station as you? Because you know as well as I do that if I had to fill 4 hours every day with this story, that A, I would fill 4 hours every day with this story, and B, a lot of that filling 4 hours would have been, and Joe won't talk about it in the morning.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it would have, to me, it's the same thing. I look at it like, oh, come on, man. You're just going too far with this stuff. You know, Jake Lyman, who follows us, I didn't even realize this, but like last week when Kaharski ripped me for like not putting out a disclaimer, Lyman's like, we haven't talked about this story. Is it because he's afraid? That's the thing. You're into this whole thing of like, people are, hiding the story. They're afraid. Some people just don't think it's worthwhile.
So
I get it.
I'm going to do something that it makes me uncomfortable to do. You won't do this, but I will do this. So I like Jake a lot. Like, you using Jake Lyman not talking about this story means absolutely nothing to me. I mean, I like Jake Lyman a lot. I consider Jake Lyman a friend. I hope good things happen to Jake. But when you tell me that Jake said to you, like, I mean, we haven't talked about this story, that to me is a reflection of Jake not really knowing how to play the hit or knowing what he's doing, then it is more so a reflection that the audience in Nashville doesn't care.
There's nothing wrong with like someone doing, I think, like, and
I say this because I like Jake and I used to work with Jake, just like you like Diana and you used to work with Diana. But unlike you, I can say, hey, Jake, you know, it is what it is. And I'm sure that it'll get back to Jake that I said that. And I'm sure Jake will get pissed off, and it is what it is. But like, when it comes to who's got a good feel on what the market cares about, me or Jake, I ain't taking Jake. And
okay. So now we get into, Jared. So now we get into, well,
I just wish you could talk like that about Diana instead of being afraid to get her mad at you.
It's not oh my God. Yeah. I'm so afraid of Diana being mad at me. I don't want to kick someone when they're down. I'm sorry, Jared. So that's all it is. I'm not worried about Diana being mad at me. I don't want to speculate on her future. There's a terrible, terrible situation. But I will tell you that if the choice is what you've done with this story or not talking about it at all, it's a very easy choice, which is not talking about it at all. It's fine in the last week, a couple weeks to like, you know, mention it here and there, but you've made it way bigger than it deserves to be. You've blown it way out of proportion. And, you know, again, this goes back to, of all the things, it's just the speculation that you had years ago is not validated in any way because you don't have any facts to validate it.
Okay, if Diana writes a tell-all book, and in the tell-all book, and this is all hypothetical, but in the tell-all book, she says, I had sexual relations with that coach, and it dates back to 2022, 2021, whenever. Will you then say, Jared, you were right, I was wrong?
No, because you didn't base it on anything, Jared. You just threw crap at the wall. And again, tell me, what was it? I just had a feeling. How she was asking questions? Again, you're going to go with some reporting that you thought was clearly because Vrabel was a source? Again, if that's the standard, holy crap. Let's go around the league. And
well, that wasn't the standard, but that was
gossip.
when I started to have, again, that's when I started to have conjecture behind closed doors.
Yeah. Your gossip sex show could really take off, Jared. Everybody that you can trace a source, that's pretty clear. This is the source. This isn't the source.
So
Run wild with it, Jared.
I thought
Irresponsible.
Vrabel and Rossini were doing it, and somebody came up to me at a Super Bowl party in Phoenix. So this was the 2023 Super Bowl, the first Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. And somebody came up to me at the party, and they said, hey, Vrabel's going to be here later. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah. Like, I talked to Diana Rossini, and Diana said her and Mike are going to stop by. And I heard that, and I was like, oh, my God. I immediately pulled out my phone and texted Caroline, and I was like, you got to hear this. And I decided that if I saw them that night, I was going to go up to them and tell them, you two have 24 hours to get your story straight, and then I'm telling everybody. So if I had proof, then I would have been 2 o'clock on the program. I would have been like, breaking news, I saw Mike and Diana sitting in a tree, and they were KSSSING. But I didn't have any proof, so I never said stuff like that on the radio.
How many times have you told this story, Jared, in the last 2 weeks?
Probably like 3 or 4 times.
Is that about the 8th time? No? Okay.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I do tell stories on a consistent basis. So if the Titans go into training camp with no right guard and no center, we're going to hear the right tackle story again.
I would prefer that. Please give me a day of nothing but the right tackle story. It's like washing your mouth out with soap, you know?
But to answer, to go back to that, my point is I didn't make this a public. I did not accuse them of canoodling publicly because I didn't have any proof of that. I may have hinted that that's what I thought, but I didn't come out and say it. I didn't report it. I didn't any of that. But then it came out that they were. And so now you're saying that all of my conjecture of the canoodling was wrong. And I just think that you're doing that because you're too stubborn to admit the truth, because you just don't want to admit that, wow, I was wrong for being such an asshole when you and Caroline brought this up to me off the air, that you guys were right and I was wrong.
No, I think that once the new information came out, obviously it's fair game to talk about. It is, as you said, it has been a big story around the league. But I don't see why it's just because you so badly want to be, apologized to or told you were right. But they're just like, you can't, but you can't take the information we have and say with absolute certainty anything. You can't.
It's the same with the Sam Darnold thing. Did I know Sam Darnold was going to win the Super Bowl when I was banging the drum for it? No, but I knew he was a good quarterback. And I wanted people to admit that I was right about that. If Cam Ward busts out, I want people to admit I'm right about that. I was right about Rand Carthon. And I've noticed I don't get any checks for being right, by the way.
You understand that these are like opinions on like sports things. And you're comparing it to hinting at some illicit relationship with no basis. You understand the difference, Jared? There's a little bit of a difference here.
So then at least say that I got lucky. Say that I got lucky and hit that home run to win the game, but don't say that I didn't hit the home run, because that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you want from me. I mean, you told me this would be over at 3 and it's 3:09.
Okay, one last thing. Who do you think the Titans are going to draft? What do you buy about all the latest smoking and screening and everything else quickly?
I think something weird will happen and they will get David Bailey and they'll draft David Bailey.
Okay. Joseph Robinette Rexrode Jr. joining us on the program. A little Jared versus Joe.
Who won?
Joseph?
Did anybody vote? Did somebody win?
I don't really know.
I think we just had a decent conversation.
I don't think you can vote on this poll. Like, it says add a poll, but I don't really know exactly how it works. So I'm just going to assume that nobody voted on it and that the YouTube chat has spoken and that I won.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Robbie Stanley chimes in and says Jared wins.
Okay.
Joe, take care of yourself. Always good to talk to you, and I look forward to a bunch of VrabelGate talk tomorrow on with PK when you guys sit down with him.
All right. Good talking to you.
Actually, wait. I think this is a good one. This guy. Diana was an AP voter. She displayed horrible journalistic integrity. How about addressing that the way you treated the woman in Jackson? I don't care about that, but what do you make of Diana voting on the AP awards? And Was she compromised?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, certainly with this now, you probably shouldn't vote. I don't know where she'll vote next year.
I will volunteer to take her spot as an unbiased voter.
But real quick, let me address the other thing. I've seen that a little bit. What? The Jacksonville woman thing? How are people tying that to this?
I got to tell you, I couldn't have given one fuck about the Jacksonville woman thing when it happened, and I don't give one shit about it now.
I mean, the connection on that one is just insane. But, yeah. Anyway, that was fun, man.
Thanks, Joe Rexrode, as always, joining us. I say as always, this is the first time that he ever joined us on our program. And the YouTube chat has said that the champion of this impromptu Jared versus Joe is Jared Stillman. Okay, let's quickly talk about what's going to be happening around here on the Stillman & Company program over the next couple of days. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to want to do maybe 2 shows tomorrow. We're definitely going to do the final Stillman & Company mock draft. We've already done 2. I believe I had the Titans taking Jeremiyah Love in one and Ruben Bain in the other. So we will have the final Jared Stillman mock draft tomorrow. And we'll talk a lot of draft. I think this story for right now is a little bit over. Now, I believe I will be on the Felger and Maz program in Boston to talk about this tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye on that. Then there will be no show on Thursday until 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock will be live from ML Rose, and we will have a show. And I don't know what's going to happen on Friday, but I am working on figuring everything out for Friday. So be excited and listening to that. TDG says, go Braves. The Braves are on fire. Salute to Walt Weiss. I mean, every night they just kick the shit out of somebody, and they have only one pitcher, and they're still absolutely fantastic. Thank you to everybody. Like and subscribe. Turn on your notifications. We got a lot of draft talk to get to. We're starting with our mock draft tomorrow and the big day on Thursday as well. Like and subscribe. 440 Sports. Let me tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are the best. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. I've been using Hiller since I became a homeowner in 2018. And since I became a homeowner in 2018, I've had multiple homes, multiple issues, and every time it's Hiller, whether it's a drain, whether it's a HVAC issue, whether it is a plumbing. Hiller. With this, my home office, which is a studio and a gym, I needed to put power outlets in here. Hiller. They take care of everything. They are fabulous. Happy you'll be here. The service is free. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Like and subscribe. See everybody coming up on Stillman & Company.